we have Walt K4OGO on. Dave, I'll let you do the introduction there for our program.
Okay, if you'd be so kind as to share your screen, I need to introduce him. I got a couple slides here.
Let me see.
You
Hold
should be
on.
able to share your screen.
Go ahead and try it. I see if you can share it. Is it coming up?
Hang on just a second. I was plugging in my speaker there. Okay, let's see here. Well, you know what? I got to get my PowerPoint going first. Yeah. Shoot, I don't think I have one on this computer. Oh boy.
I was on it.
All right, so we'll do without pictures and I'll just talk. Ain't that
There you go.
dandy? So at this point on the slides, you're looking at a picture of Walt's book available on Amazon as well as through ARRL, Salty Walt's Portable Antenna Sketchbook. Keep that in mind because we'll refer back to it in a moment. And as Ralph mentioned, tonight we have K4OGO. Our guest is Walt Hudson. Walt's claim to fame is his website, or I'm sorry, website, his YouTube channel, uh, Coastal Waves and Wires. And he uses that to review many of the commercial antennas that are out there, as well as some of his own designs. And as we saw on the first slide, he also has a book out. So I unfortunately on the next slide it's going to be hard to describe. Other than is Mr. Haverstock is MSH in there tonight?
Yeah, Mark's here.
Okay, so if you could get a camera on Mark, I'd like to point out that we have our own version of Salty Walt. That is Salty Mark, who frequently does Beach DX.
Stand
And,
up, Mark.
huh?
There's Mark. There's Mark.
There he is. I had a picture in my PowerPoint. Unfortunately, I switched computers. I don't have PowerPoint on this computer, but I had a picture of him on the beach in a lawn chair with his antenna and all the stuff that Walt does all the time. All right, so later this year, we got in the plans to do a review of the YouTube sites that deal with ham radio, and I'm sure Walt's site is going to be one of the prime examples there. I took a peek, and again, you'll have to imagine this slide uh, just posted today on his YouTube channel is a video on tuning your antenna in the field. And so with that, let's welcome Kilo 4 Oscar Golf Oscar. Hello, Walt.
Howdy. Hey, thanks for having me, guys. This is an honor to be with you guys tonight. Thank you very much. I guess we'll start off by saying I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then how the book came to be. I grew up always living by the coast. Quick story: I was my eighth birthday was 1970. I got this radio. It was called the Panapet. It was the little round ball radios, if you remember. Panasonic made them, and I was really into this. I say this is my entry into radio. At night when I wasn't supposed to, I'd had the head earphone in, and I would tune around and listen to stations all over the country, as most of us did in the 1970. You know, back then AM radio was a big deal. Across the street from where I lived was a beach. I know it's a tough life, but I looked out my bedroom window at a beach as a kid. And I would go out there, and evenings I would listen to radio and pick up all these stations. Well, this is in the area I live in now here in Virginia, on the coast. I would go, my grandparents lived in North Carolina, inland in eastern North Carolina, and I would spend my summers on the farm. And I noticed that I take my radio with me. I didn't get the amazing, we'll call it D. I didn't even know what DX was at the time, but this radio didn't work like it did when I was home. And I'd go down, and one afternoon, it was like evening, what we call gray line now. The sun was going down the summer. I walked out into the water, and suddenly this thing was just lit up with like stations. And I knew at a very early age, at 8 years old, that there was something about salt water and radio. Time goes by, you know, I've been a radio hobbyist since then, shortwave listener, DXer, CBer, you name it, we all went through it. But I kind of learned then what salt water meant. And this led to the evolution of my channel. From that point on, became an engineer. In 1980, I started as a shipbuilding apprentice, and I was, and also went to Old Dominion University. And from that point, my career developed into design engineering. And as a young designer and engineer, I was the kid that I was in there with in the think tank when we started a project, and I worked in shipbuilding. We were designing a ship. I was there in the early stages, but when this thing started maturing into the build stages, I was the field guy that they would send me out into the field. I'd go out, I'd be in the dry docks or in the shipyard interfacing. I was the liaison or the field engineer for building. And so if there was a problem, I would sketch it up. I would have to sketch the problem up, send it back to the office, or sketch it up and solve the problem and give the sketch back to the production guys and say, fix it. So sketching was always part of the deal. Later, as I became, as social media got bigger and me being a ham, um, I made the big mistake, or I should say, maybe not a mistake. It kind of launched what is my YouTube channel. I was on a lot of Facebook antenna forums or groups, which, yeah, we know we can believe everything and everybody we hear on Facebook. So I was, with my career, I'd get sent to different places. When my boss came and told me, hey, we're going to have to send you to Barking Sands Naval Base for a while. And I didn't even know where it was at the time. I looked it up and it was like, wow, Kauai, Hawaii. So I was excited. Like, you know what? That's an opportunity while I'm there. Now we're in solar minimum as at the time too. So DX wasn't that great, but it's like while I was there, I was like, man, I got plans. I'm going to build some antennas. So, if you followed me or knew me back then, I would always, as I do now, would sketch up an antenna and I would put it on Facebook and hey guys, I'm going to build this. And I on this group, I said I'm going to Kauai. I'm going to go out on the beach with 5 watts QRP and build this vertical. And everyone just like rained shade on me. You know what I mean? Almost like hate. It was like, you'll never do any 5 watts QRP on a beach, blah, 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 blah. And you got it all wrong. You should be building a horizontal dipole, not a vertical. I was smart enough to know the old saying, horizontal by land, vertical by sea. And I knew this already, being a ham and operating by the sea. So I thought to myself, you know what? I really want to prove these people wrong. So I just started a channel. I said, you know what? I'm gonna make a video of my experience in Kauai while I'm there. And then so I got there. I built the vertical. I'm sitting there with a little handheld, the little X5105 Zygu QRP rig, using it as an HT. I built a vertical antenna. I went to the store there and bought duct tape. I bought a fishing pole, some duct tape, and a mop. And I took the bottom off the mop. I drove the mop into the sand on the beach there. Took duct tape and taped the fishing pole to it. Put the wire to it, and I had a vertical. And I was making amazing contacts, like sitting in the middle of the Pacific. And this is like right during COVID, so there was no one on the beach, and I was just loving it. And I put this into a video, and just so I could take that video, go back to that Facebook group, and go, nanny boo boo, you're all wrong, I was right. And I had so much fun doing it that I was like, I want to keep doing this. And then I get back to my home, Virginia Beach, went out on the beach, made more and more, and the whole thing just kind of snowballed. So with doing that, documenting my antenna builds, drawing the sketches, the channel grew. And as I got bigger and bigger, a couple years ago, it's like a Sunday afternoon, I'm doing a video. I was working in Rhode Island, and I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just talking to everybody, kind of an update on the channel. I said, you guys have really been asking me for info. You wanted all my sketches together. I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to get them all together. I'll get them scanned or whatever, and I'll try to put one big PDF book together. I'll put some sort of a book out there. If everybody just be patient, I'll do it. This was a Sunday, and I posted the video. Monday morning, my phone rang around 9:30, 10 o'clock, and it was a Connecticut number. I'm like, who do I know in Connecticut? All right, I'll answer it. I answer it, and guy goes, is this Salty Walt? I go, yeah. He goes, hi, this is Dave Menster, CEO of the American Radio Relay League. And I said, oh, hi, Dave. I know who you are. Thanks for calling. How can I help you? He said, I watch all your videos, and I saw you were saying that you were going to put a book together. you know, we at the league would really love for you to make that a publication of the American Radio Relay League. So let me think about it. Yeah, I'll do it. It didn't take long. So that's how the book came to be. Forever, I am, grateful to David and everyone. Just so many people there. While I was in Rhode Island, I also got to go to HQ there with the league and meet everybody and work together, work with their staff. And that book is I've got it here. The book is like I said, it's all of my sketches are quite a few of them. Throughout the book. I did the modeling and the science behind them too, but that book is, as much as it's me, it's the staff there at the editorial staff there at the American Radio Relay League. They're just incredible, and made that happen. And I'm just overwhelmed at how well the book's taken off. And I think I feel some pride in it because I really wanted something that before I even got with it, when I was trying to put it together as just my self-published PDF files or whatever, my whole goal was to motivate people to build antennas. That's kind of what my goal is with the channel and what I do with Coastal Waves and Wires. But I really wanted to motivate guys. So that book is really most of those antennas are very simple builds with just a few parts, and they work. And I, like I said, it's starting off with a quarter wave vertical, which I think is the first entry level vertical for a new ham to build, all the way over to the second half of the book, which has a lot of traditional antennas, building a dipole and that type of thing. And that was really the whole, for me, the idea of the book and what I wanted it to be was a motivator, but kind of a simple guide that didn't look so technical. It doesn't look or doesn't feel like the American Radio Relay League antenna book. I wanted it to feel more like a comic book that was me. They kind of had like a little touch of saltiness to it, but anyone, you didn't have to live by the sea. Anyone could enjoy the book. Kind of I don't know. I say in the book, it's in the intro, and I've said this all the time. This book is not the Mozart of antenna books. It's the Jimmy Buffett. You know what I'm saying? It's fun. So that was the whole idea of the book, how it came to be, who I am moving forward. I showed you that. This is a video I put up today. I had an idea, one of the end-fed halfway vertical for 10 meters. In my book, I built it, modeled it, and built it with a 64-1. I went out yesterday with 49-1, added a small counterpoise, built this, and I showed in the video I put up this morning of trimming the wire and bringing it to resonance. Stuff like that is really what I want to do, what I try to do with the channel, and encourage people in this wonderful hobby of ours. That's what it's all about and who I am. So in a short, I don't want to take up your whole evening, but that's me, and I hope I can encourage you guys too, whether you buy my book or just go on social media. You can see every sketch I've ever made there on my Coastal Waves and Wires Instagram or Facebook page to check it out and get out there and build antennas.
Awesome.
Thank you. And I'm up for questions. If you guys want to talk, you want more from me, I'll hang out as long as you guys would like.
Anybody have any questions?
What was the name of the book or book again?
The book, here, I'll show it to you. It is called Salty Walt's Portable Antenna Sketchbook. It is a American Radio Relay League publication. Right now it's available on Amazon. It is I just checked today. It's been battling out between 1 and 2. Right now it's at number 1 on the antenna books for Amazon. So I'm pretty proud of that.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I have a question. What's
Sure.
your favorite portable antenna?
My favorite portable antenna, that's a great question. So I always say with antennas, there's a lid for every pot. If I lived inland, like say on the summit or whatever, the antenna I'm getting ready to tell you would be totally different. But for me living on the coast, I actually told someone before, if someone like held a gun at me and said, you have got to go right now and make the best DX contact you can, you only get one antenna, what would it be? I love a vertical half wave antenna for the 20 meter band. So what I do is I take everyone knows the infed half wave. I take that's traditionally made for 66 feet long or 65 for a 40-meter band. I build a vertical one for the 20-meter band. So what I do is take a half wavelength for 20 meters, put a 49-to-1 on it underneath it at the feed point. I choke it at the feed point, and I use 5% of a wavelength as a single counterpoise. I call that the cul-de-sac. So if we know how RF flows through a half a wavelength, almost like a dipole, that little 5% there, I call it the cul-de-sac, where it turns around and goes back up the antenna. I tell you what, Rudy Severns was the one that I learned that from, reading on his stuff. It's amazing how well it works. I've taken that halfway vertical antenna on the beach in the Outer Banks of North Carolina with 5 watts QRP on, say, an early morning at the gray line. And I'm making S7, S8 contacts with 5 watts QRP into Australia on the beach. Now, I'm next to salt water. That's a whole nother story. But that, to me, a lid for every pot. That's the lid for me, being on the beach operating DX. I love that antenna.
Next question.
Tell us about the saltwater amplifier.
I will do that. So if you ever taken a look at ground conductivity, the FCC actually, for AM radio stations, for AM broadcast stations, for their towers, part of it is, AM stations all have to have that their footprint or whatever where they're at, and it's part of their license regulation. So the FCC puts out a map of the United States with the ground conductivity across the United States. In that map, if you look down real in the corner, you'll see 5 millisiemens per meter, 10, 20 throughout Earth across the USA. When you get over to salt, it says salt water is 100 millisiemens per meter. So the saltwater amplifier, a lot of people get it confused when they say, you put your radials or your counterpoise wires into the water. That's really not true. What I try to do is get as close to salt water as you can to get that effect of ground conductivity. If when you're building a vertical antenna on the ground and you've got counterpoise wires down, just on Earth, whatever, the coupling of the counterpoise to the Earth is part of the antenna system itself, because you're basically building a mirror underneath it, because you're almost like you're having a dipole. The other half is the counterpoise underneath it. When you're by salt water, that coupling intensifies like 10 times over with what's that salty sand or next to the salt. I've actually even taken pool noodles and floated my counterpoise wires on top of salt water. And there's a lot of science out there that it's really not defined as it should be. I can find more information on this in oceanography text than you can in radio text, but the conductivity and the gain that you get from being on top of that highly conductive surface of salt water is like a 10 dB gain in itself with just a vertical, and that dB is compared to a regular vertical quarter wave on land. So let's just say I'm operating on land with 10 watts SSB QRP. When I move to the salt water, it's like taking that 10 watts and going 10 times greater. It's like 100 watts. So that is it's not really an amplifier, but that comparing the difference in ground conductivity under a vertical on land compared to ground conductivity over salt water, that greatness, that 10 times over, is the saltwater amplifier.
Very interesting.
Other question.
Sure.
Inland land, your favorite vertical?
Inland land, my favorite vertical. It's a good question too. When I was in Poland, I worked in Poland for 2.5 years. I was fortunate enough that I was there for 2 months and I'd come home for a month and then go back. So it reset what is called the CEPT agreement, where U.S. amateurs can operate in a CEPT country, which Poland is. So I was well away from water, and it was in northern Poland, and I had a backyard. So I had nothing to do. I worked on a NATO base all day. I'd come home and every night, all weekend, all I did was play radio. and I discovered an antenna called the Ribicoff antenna, which was the idea of an Italian ham who had moved to Central Africa, was married to a Russian woman, and she let him know when he developed this vertical antenna that Ribicoff meant fisherman in Russian. Here I am, an American in Poland. I call it, that was one of the most international antennas I ever built, but I operated it's a simple antenna. It's 25 feet of driven element, or 7.6 meters, with a 4-to-1 unknown on it, which gives it close enough of an impedance that it can be tuned by almost any radio for 40 through 6 meters. I had that thing in the backyard in Poland, and I worked some incredible DX with that vertical well inland, the Ribicoff antenna.
So that's 25 feet with a what on it?
4-to-1.
4-to-1.
And then build radials underneath it. I think the one I built in Poland, I had like 5 meter long or 17 feet long. Just no method to the magic on the radials. Just I had a good spread out in a star or whatever underneath it. It operated well. It really did.
So for us Ohioan, would that Ribicoff be your suggestion?
Yeah, as a vertical, it really would. I mean, you guys are. And once again, it depends. I mean, I know you guys can get up to Lake Erie. Now, Lake Erie, you're not going to get the effect that I get, but you're still going to get some advantage being near water with clearing around you. You know what I mean? Takeoff angle, no obstructions, quietness away from, if you find a beach without electrical lines around you, whatever. There's something to be said to that. I've operated up on Green Bay. I was working in Wisconsin, and I noticed this big difference. It's not like when I'm on the beach in Virginia Beach, but it was still, it was decent antenna to operate with there. I still think if I was inland like where you guys are in Ohio, I don't know if a vertical is the antenna for that. As I said earlier, there's a lid for every pot. This may be where something, like if you're trying to get gain and lower that takeoff angle for DX or whatever, something like a half square antenna, or, maybe 2-element co-phased or something of that nature if you're going to go in the vertical idea. But all in all, that's the beauty of experimenting with antennas, is finding out what really works best in your area, like I have by the sea. It's just I tell people all the time, don't find one antenna and make that this is my antenna. Leave no antenna behind. That's what I say. Try them all and see what works best for you, because every day's a different day as well, and every month, year, week, propagation changes, the weather changes. There's just so many things. The bands change, different antennas for different times. Like right now, I'm heavy into 10-meter antennas. 5 years ago, I didn't even want to, the 10-meter band was dead. I mean, and 5 years from now, it's not going to be what it is now. But while we're up high in the cycle, playing around with 10-meter antennas, and it's a lot of fun.
If you had to identify one major fallacy that's out there about antennas and antenna building that you found, what would you say it is?
One fallacy.
Something that everybody goes, oh yeah, when you build an antenna, you got to do, and you found out that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but it's funny you should say that. One of the things is there are too many. How do I explain this? There are too many experts out there that want to tell you this is it, it's solid, it's how it is. And I think if I could say one thing is, like, and even with me, everything I say is not the gospel. I mean, physics are like medicine. It's not an exact science. Things change. Just like I said a second ago, things go around. I think people, like I said earlier when I started the channel, some guy, way back when we were all younger, we were all told the dipole was the best antenna and it should be the first antenna you ever build. It is the antenna. Someone got that in their head and thought to themselves, it's all about the dipole, not knowing, like I said, that there's a different antenna for every situation. And I think that's the biggest fallacy, is people get too hung up on one antenna. I've even said before that everyone talks about the infed half wave is the greatest antenna ever. It's a good antenna, don't get me wrong, and you can throw it up in a tree or do whatever. But there's so many other antennas for different situations that are better. So I guess the one fallacy I should say is, don't get hung up on one antenna. there's different antennas for different situations.
Andy, go ahead.
Have you, Walt, have you ever done any experimenting with conductive mesh, window screen or door screen as counterpoise or reflective elements underneath, say, even a dipole or a vertical? Have you done anything with that?
That's wow. You're reading my. You've been looking at my notes. I'm currently writing an article for the league for the field day issue in June, and what I'm going to do next weekend is it's the Virginia QSO party next weekend, and I've always been a DXer, and I always try to reach out or whatever. And I thought to myself, and I talked to the guys back at the league, I was like, everyone sees me on the beach trying to work. You see me talking to Australia and Europe or whatever. I want to work NVIS. I want to, during the QSO party, I want to try to work all the other counties in the state of Virginia. I think what I'm going to do is build an NVIS antenna. So I've got the antenna here ready to go. It is, as a matter of fact, I got it from Tim, N9SAB. You guys know Tim, the antenna builder. I told him he built it for me. I said, I want you to take your 40-meter dipole, he calls it the Nano 40, and out of the same wire, make me another reflector wire that is 5% longer than that wire. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on. I'll be on the beach next weekend, but I'm going to put it on the beach with the reflective wire underneath it and put the dipole directly above it about 15 feet. And my plan is to use that as a reflector off on 40 meters during the daytime while I'm working the Virginia QSO party. That's coming up and something you'll see on the channel like week after next. It's something I have planned. In the past, though, as far as reflective stuff underneath me or using stuff, this whole magic carpet thing that's been out, I know, Michael Martins and everyone swears by it or whatever. I've never been a fan of it because I sit on top of the world's greatest ground, when I go out on the beach. And I tried that on the beach and I didn't have the success that I thought I would. If I was inland, that might be a different story, but that's the other side of it. Another thing I have done, though, I've gone to the top of a parking garage and I knew it had rebar all underneath it. And I laid radials all over top of the rebar, thinking that I would couple with the top of the parking garage that I was up on with a vertical. And I'm convinced, I don't know how I could ever prove it, but I made a contact in the middle of the afternoon on the top of the parking garage with 20 watts of my G90 with an S9 report to Nambia and over in Africa with all that rebar underneath me. So I think that might be similar to what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, the reason I asked was you brought up NVIS, and that's exactly why I asked, because we have here in the state of Ohio, we have an NVIS day. It's coming up it's usually in the springtime.
April 25th.
April 25th?
April 25th.
Coming up. And the first time I'd ever worked it, I have a model of the old military style NVIS that I've added some loading coils to bring it back down into the amateur bands. And it worked pretty well, but I was listening to a fellow about 50 to 60 miles away from here, southwest of us in Ohio, that he had rolled out chicken wire. He had the same dipole, and he rolled chicken wire underneath that and grounded it at the ends. And he was working QRB, and he was working all over the state of Ohio, Indiana, Western Pennsylvania, and I was listening to his signal report at my place was 20 dB overnight.
Wow.
And that's not ground wave at that distance. And I've always wanted to experiment with it. And that was the only exposure that I'd had to trying this out. The storing rolls with chicken wire and stuff like that, probably won't go well with the wife.
Well, that's kind of similar to what I'm thinking. For me, I'm camping next weekend here at Virginia Beach. We have a campground right by us, and I just pull my RV 10 miles from home here over to the campsite. I love it. I can walk out it and walk over the dune. And I'm thinking the same thing, similar, but you're talking about chicken wire. He's using that as the reflector underneath it. I'm trying and thinking that that long piece of wire, the longer wire under the dipole, is going to, with that salty, conductive earth underneath it, it's going to be kind of similar to what you're saying. That you're, like I said, you're blowing my mind right now. That's where my mind is at. What I'm thinking to do here next week is kind of start playing in the Invis world, and I'm being encouraged by David and the guys at the league to do that.
You've got to look at Dr. Yagi's work and realize that what we're talking about is a director.
Right. Right. You're just using a line underneath you and bringing that dipole down. So just you're turning that big RF cloud into this and making it go up and bounce straight back down. That's the whole idea. I'm looking forward to it. I really am.
Any other questions?
If you were thinking about how to motivate younger people in amateur radio, given what you like to play with and what you're interested in, how would you motivate younger folks to be involved in amateur radio?
That's a good question, and it's kind of I'm hoping be like, for my culture of being the guy on the beach and that type of thing, grabs some people that they understand that I think we all have that stereotypical view of ham radio, and it's more. It really is. I mean, we all have. It's what they say, a hobby of 1,000 hobbies, and I'm hoping that what I do and seeing my channel. I mean, kids today, people. And I'm a father and a grandfather, and I know I'm watching my son's in his mid-30s now, but watching him grow up just 10, 15 years ago as a teenager into his adulthood. I mean, that's where YouTube caught on for him. He kind of brags. He goes, he talks to his peers and his friends, and he goes, my dad's a monetized YouTuber. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what that crowd of that younger group is. That's their, what they're paying attention to. Not like us. I mean, we grew up watching, ABC, NBC, CBS, and what have you. There's a shift in media. There's a shift in, what's going on in the world. And I'm hoping what I do, as well as others. I mean, I'm good friends with guys like K8MRD and those guys or whatever. I know we're still kind of old guys too, but I hope we kind of catch on to a younger group of people, and it promotes the hobby and moves it on. I mean, we got a lot of competition. Like, I'm not an FT8 guy or a digital guy, but that seems to be something that younger people are into, and I hope that maybe catches them, hooks them, reels them in, and then they start expanding in the hobby as well. But I think it's all about the media is really what's going to promote us, with the younger crowd.
Remember that.
What's your YouTube channel again?
Coastal Waves and Wires, kind of a play off of radio waves and sea waves there, being on the coast.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Walt, I appreciate you taking some time this
Hang on a
evening to
second,
talk to
Frank.
us. Oh,
Dave's got a question.
Yes. Hey, Walt, any plans to be at Hamvention?
Oh yeah, I'm there. I will definitely be there. I'm gonna fill you guys in on something. It's kind of going to be announced real soon, but it's all good. I'll tell you guys. Book 2 will probably, right now is on track. Book 2 to be announced and possibly be at Hamvention.
nice.
And you'll be hanging out at the ARRL area?
I'll be there all week. I'll be there with the league at different times during the day. I think last year I was a forum speaker. I think I will be probably speaking again this year on behalf of the league.
Okay. And then change the subject here a little bit. I'm curious if you've come across any tricks on testing antennas. We all put the antenna analyzer on there and we get a 1.3 to 1 and say, hey, but that doesn't mean it works. And
Right.
I was just curious if you came across any other tips for how to test antennas other than SWR.
There's stuff I don't do it. Everyone tells me I should do whisper. I should take 2 antennas, compare them to each other. I should find web SDRs and listen to myself. The way I test an antenna, if you watch any one of my videos, I build it and then just go hunting for contacts. and then the proof's in the pudding. The antenna I built like yesterday that it's on the video this morning, first contact was right here on Eastern Virginia, the Canary Islands. I was 5'7". From there, it was Brazil, Belize. I'm like, okay, this antenna works. That's
Uh-huh.
kind of my test pattern. I know it's probably not the most technical, but then again, that's kind of just like the book. This is not the most technical book either. That's just, that's the good old boy Bubba way of making an antenna and see if it works. Let's just see if it works.
Sure enough. Okay, Frank, back to you.
All right. Walt, I appreciate you taking some time this evening to talk to us and answer our questions. And you are free to stick around for the rest of the meeting if you'd like. Otherwise, you're at this point, we won't hold you any longer.
I'm probably going to bow out, and I have to get up at 3:45. It won't be much longer. Spend a few minutes with my bride, and then go to bed early, guys. But I really thank you so much. I've enjoyed coming in and being a part of the club tonight, and I really enjoyed speaking to you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Walt.
Thank you.